Week 13 of the fantasy football season, and here's a few quarterbacks I look to drop this week. The first guy, Aaron Rodgers of the Green Bay Packers. So Rodgers, he's been on and off this list for most of the season, but now banged up with a rib injury. Even though he's still trying to push through and play, I think it's time for the Green Bay Packers at 4-8 this season to go to the youngster Jordan Love, who looked good coming in relief for Aaron Rodgers, even though I know he's late in that ball game and he had only 2 or 3 drives. Games for Rodgers here, he actually had some decent fantasy days. Week 10 versus Dallas, 224 pass yards, 3 touchdowns, 4 rush yards, a fumble loss. Week 11 versus Tennessee, 227 pass yards, 2 touchdowns, a 2-point conversion. And week 12 of Philly before he went out, in that one, 140 pass yards, 2 touchdowns, and 2 interceptions. So right here, week 13, if he does play, it's a great matchup with the Chicago Bears, a team he's owned throughout his NFL career, and a team that just can't stop anybody on defense. But right here, Aaron Rodgers, I think it's time for this Packer team to see what they got with Jordan Love, the younger quarterback. And Rodgers, we don't even know how much longer he's going to play in the league, even though we know in the offseason he signed a 4-year contract. But right now, I think the Packers are going to go with the youngster. I definitely could see Rodgers playing this week, and then after the bye week, when they're mathematically out, they're going to go to the youngster Love. So right here, Aaron Rodgers owned in 80% of fantasy leagues, but he's a guy that's been very inconsistent this season here. And now with a quarterback change, I believe, looming, he's a quarterback to drop this week. The next guy, Russell Wilson of the Denver Broncos. So I don't know how Russell Wilson's still owned in 61% of fantasy leagues, but right here, he's been a total bust for this Bronco team. And I thought going to Denver with great weapons coming into the season, like Courtland Sutton, Jerry Jeudy, and Javonte Williams before he went down with injury, was a good nucleus and a good offense for Russ. But over the last couple seasons now, he just hasn't been the guy, and he hasn't been a guy for fantasy football in the last year and a half pretty much. Week 10 at Tennessee, 286 pass yards, a touchdown, and into Week 11 versus the Raiders, 247 pass yards, 8 rush yards. And Week 12 at Carolina, 142 pass yards, a touchdown, 8 rush yards, and a fumble loss. So Week 13, a pretty tough matchup at Baltimore here for Russell Wilson. And at this point, I don't know how fantasy owners really could trust him unless you're in a 2-quarterback league or an 18-team league or something here with Wilson. But he's a quarterback I would drop this week. And the third and final quarterback I look to drop is Taysom Hill of the New Orleans Saints. So right here, Taysom Hill, they said he was going to get more plays. He was going to be more involved in this offense. And in Week 12, we didn't see much. 6 carries, 13 rush yards, and a catch for 7 yards for Taysom Hill. And then the last few games before that, Week 9 versus Baltimore, 13 pass yards, a rush for 6 yards. Week 10 at Pittsburgh in that one, 3 carries, a yard. And then Week 11 versus the Los Angeles Rams, 14 pass yards, 9 rushes, 52 yards, a catch for 8 yards. So right here, I know they want to use him as a gadget guy. I know they want to use him in plays as throwing the football as well. But this season, it just hasn't worked out for Taysom Hill, and he's owned in too many fantasy leagues at 53%. So that's a few quarterbacks I look to drop here for Week 13 of the fantasy football season.